take a look at the 4 glazes you have to choose from to glaze your slab box project. You have the Fletcher clear, which of course is clear, so when you put it on, even though it looks green, I promise you it'll come out of the kiln clear. And you will be able to see through it, and you will be able to see your Sgraffito, and it pretty much just adds a gloss surface, and the black areas will get even blacker. So right here is the Fletcher turquoise, and you can see that, of course, it's this same green color, so it looks just like the clear, but it's going to turn this beautiful turquoise color. It's a very, very beautiful glaze. Now, with these two, there's a little difference here. Fletcher clear, usually 1 coat is good enough. 1 thick coat. If you put too much of the Fletcher clear on, it's going to get little microscopic bubbles in the glaze, which will make it look cloudy. And if you look on this example, see if this will focus, you can see some of these bubbles right there. They're not too big of a deal. They won't affect the surface of the glaze. It'll still be, you know, safe to use and everything like that, but it does cloud it up a little bit. So Fletcher clear, 1 coat. Fletcher turquoise, you're going to want to use 3 to 4 coats, as it says on the instructions right there. Okay, 3 coats. If you don't put enough on, it won't be that beautiful turquoise color. It'll be like a lightish color, and it might even be dry and scratchy. Same thing with the Fletcher cobalt. The more you put on, the bluer it gets, the shinier it gets, the more beautiful it gets. So definitely 3 to 4 coats there. Make sure you let it dry in between. You can see how all 3 of these look identical in the jar, but they come out 3 different colors. They have a little green dye in them, so you can see where you've painted them on your pot. And then we have the Amico LG 65 Amber Glaze. Look beautiful on that Sgraffito. Okay, this one does tend to run a little bit, so follow the directions in the jar. I believe it says 3 coats, but don't put any more than 3 coats on there because it can run. Of course, I use Fletcher cobalt on mine, and I do like it. It was a little, it does obscure the pattern a little bit, but I'm growing to like it a lot. So you can glaze everything except for the bottom of your pot and where the lid goes together. So you don't want to get any glaze here or on this part of the lid. And the reason why is because in the kiln it's going to melt and it would fuse the box together if you put glaze right there. So try not to get any glaze on there. Now if you do, you can wipe it off. This is showing how we're going to put the pots in the kiln. When I fire the kiln, I'm going to fire your pot with the lid on the bottom of the box. So it's really important that you don't have glaze where the lid touches the bottom of the box, because when the glaze becomes molten, it will fuse the two together. So you really want to make sure you wipe all that glaze off where the lid touches the pot. I'm going to be using the Fletcher Cobalt. And this is a good glaze because it is transparent. You can see through it. But I chose it because I think that the really dark blue would look really nice against this black, and it'll be a subtle pattern, but I think it'll still show the pattern really nicely and look really good. So I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out. I'm going to paint 3 coats on it. You can even do 4 for the Fletcher Cobalt. The more glaze you put on, the darker it gets. You're going to want to make sure you stir it really well. Don't just shake it, stir it up really good, get all the way down to the bottom, and stir it up really well, and then you can begin painting it on. I'm going to paint the inside first. A nice thick coat. Now you're going to want to wait for the first coat to dry all the way before you put on the second coat. If you don't, you can find that the second coat might actually remove part of the first one, and you're going to end up with a thin application, or it could be a little splotchy. Now this clip was sped up over 10 minutes, and you can see how the color changes when it dries. A good strategy might be to glaze 2 pots at the same time. So while you're glazing one, you can have the other one in front of the fan drying, so you're not sitting there waiting for it to dry. After you're done glazing your pot and it's all dried, it's essential that you remove all of the glaze from where the lid touches the pot. If you don't, like we talked about earlier, it'll fuse together in the kiln. Now, the more careful you are glazing it, the easier the step will be. I wasn't very careful, and it took me a long time to clean up this lid, and I really regret not taking my time glazing it more carefully.
So hopefully you can avoid my mistake and not get any glaze where the lid touches the pot. The next step is going to be to remove all the glaze from the bottom. And you're going to use the same wet sponge. Just get a sponge out of the sink, squeeze all the water out of it, and remove all the glaze from the bottom. And of course, if you don't do this, it'll stick to the kiln shelf.